I'm recording solutions for every algebra question on the SAT. This is part 7, specifically about linear functions, and in this video I'll be doing every easy linear functions question from the SAT online question bank. You can see every question on here will have the skill listed as linear functions under the domain algebra, and all of them will be 1 out of 3 difficulty. For every question, they have a unique question ID, and you can check the video description to find the question ID along with a timestamp of the exact minute and second where the explanation starts for that question, and a brief topic summary for each question. Function f is defined by f of x equals 25x plus 30. What is the value of f of x when x equals 2? So this just means we're plugging in 2 for x in this equation, so it's 25 times 2 plus 30. 25 times 2 is 50. 50 plus 30 will give us 80. So that will be option C. Just make sure, if you haven't seen this before, hopefully you'll have seen it in algebra class, but f of x means a function of x, where x is your input and then this over here, the right side, is your output. It's not f times x. F is not a variable in this case. Again, f is a function. Next question. The function f is defined by f of x equals 8x. For what value of x does f of x equal 72? Well, we know f of x is 8x. So what does x have to be for 8x to be equal to 72? 8 times 9 would give you 72. I'm just thinking what times 8 would give you 72. You could also do the opposite of times 8, which is divide by 8 on both sides. That leaves you with x is equal to 9. You get the same answer. F of x equals 4x plus b. For the linear function f, b is a constant, and f of 7 equals 28. What is the value of b? We know when you plug in 7, you get an output of 28. So 28 is equal to 4 times 7 plus b. Now 4 times 7 will give us 28. So 28 plus b is equal to 28. Well, what do you have to add to something to make it equal to itself? You add 0. That's considered the identity number of addition. So 0, you could also think, I want to get the b alone, so I'm going to subtract 28 from both sides. That gives me 0 is equal to 0 plus b. So b is 0. Gabriella deposits $35 in a savings account at the end of each week. So that's $35 each week. At the beginning of the first week of the year, there was $600 in the savings account. So at the beginning, at time 0, she had $600, and she's adding $35 each week. So we do 35 times the number of weeks that pass. How much money in dollars will be in the account at the end of the 4th week? Note that the first number was at the beginning of the first week, so that's basically time 0. This is like time 4 weeks. The savings are equal to the $600 she started with plus 35 times the number of weeks, because she's putting in 35 each week. So I'll just plug in 4 for W, 4 for the number of weeks that have passed. And then we have 600 plus 35 times 4. Well, 2 times 35 is 70, so double that would be 140. We get 600 plus 140, which is equal to $740. Option D. A veterinarian recommends that each day a certain rabbit should eat 25 calories per pound of the rabbit's weight, plus an additional 11 calories. So that's 11 calories no matter what, even if it weighed 0, plus 25 times the number of pounds. Let's call that P. Or actually, right here we see it's going to be X, but 25 times X. Which equation represents the situation where C is the total number of calories? So C is equal to, the veterinarian recommends the rabbit should eat each day if the rabbit's weight is X pounds. Right? Well, again, it was 11 no matter what. That's the additional 11. And 25 per pound. So 25 per pound times the number of pounds will give you how many calories. So it'd be something equivalent to this, and we can see option D is the same. They just switch the order, and the associative property, or actually the commutative property of addition, means it doesn't matter what order you add things as long as you're only adding. The total cost, f of x in dollars, to lease a car for 36 months from a particular car dealership is given by f of x equals 36x, so there's the 36, plus $1,000, where x is the monthly payment. So the monthly payment times the number of months will give you this 36x, and then we're adding in 1,000. Presumably that's just a fee no matter how many months. What is the total cost to lease a car when the monthly payment is $400? So again, X is your monthly payment. We're doing 36 months. So 36 times 400 plus the 1,000. That's like your y-intercept, your starting value. And here we get 36 times 400 is 14,400 plus 1,000, which will give us 15,400 for our f of x value. That's option C. D equals 16 minus x over 30. The equation shown gives the estimated amount of diesel, D, in gallons that remains in the gas tank of a truck after being driven x miles, where 0 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 480. So you can see 16 is the starting amount, and then you're using 1 gallon every 30 miles. So it's going down by 1 each time the number of miles goes up by 30. What is the estimated amount of diesel in gallons that remains in the gas tank of the truck when x equals 300? So we can do 16 minus, we just substitute 300 in for x, 300 divided by 30, which will give us 10. So we get 16 minus 10, which equals 6. So d will be equal to 6 when x is 300. And now this part where it says that just means, right, x can't exceed 480 because then you would get 480 divided by 30 is 16. So anything bigger than 480 would give you a negative value for d. You can't have negative gallons left in the tank. But that didn't matter for that problem because it was not a number over 480. The front of a roller coaster car is at the bottom of the hill and is 15 feet above the ground. So the bottom of the hill is 15 feet from the ground. If the front of the roller coaster car rises at a constant rate of 8 feet per second, so it's going up 8 times the number of seconds, which of the following equations gives the height h in feet of the front of the roller coaster car s seconds after it starts up the hill? All right, well, it starts at 15. So 15 is its initial amount. You can think of that as the y-intercept. And it's going up 8 feet every second. So that's 8 times the number of seconds. That will give you the height. So it should be something like that. We have h equals 8s plus 15. There we go. So it's just going to be a. If f is the function defined by f of x equals 2x minus 1 in the numerator over 3 in the denominator, what is the value of f of 5? So this just means you input 5 for x, and we get 2 times 5 minus 1 over 3. That's equal to f of 5. So f of 5 equals 10 minus 1 over 3. 10 minus 1 is 9, so 9 over 3, which gives us f of 5 equals 3. d equals 16t. The given equation represents the distance d in inches, where t represents the number of seconds since an object started moving. Which of the following is the best interpretation of 16 in this context? It's giving us distance equals something times the time that it's traveling that, and 16 is that something. Well, we know from physics that distance is equal to velocity times time, or sometimes you'll see distance equals rate times time or speed times time. Technically, you would say like displacement equals velocity times time because those are two vector values, but either way, it's basically the speed at which you're doing something times the amount of time you're doing that will give you how much is done. Right? So in this case, if it's traveling a distance, if you travel so many meters per second times so many seconds, then it would give you how far you go. And we're doing the distance in inches and the time in seconds. So this should be something that's going to be inches per second, right? It's the rate of traveling inches per second. When you multiply that by seconds, it leaves you with just inches, so you get the right units there. So that's what we're looking for. The object moved a total of 16 inches. No, it doesn't have to do total distance traveled. The object moved a total of 16t inches. This is the best interpretation of 16 in this context. I mean, that's true, right? It's 16 times t, but that's not really an interpretation of 16. So I'll leave b for now, but the object is moving at a rate of 16 inches per second. Okay, that's a better interpretation of 16. This b is true, but again, that's not really what the question was asking. The object is moving at a rate of 1 over 16 inches per second. No, that's reciprocal. I don't know why they would be doing that. If you're traveling 16 inches per second for 2 seconds, then you went 32 inches. The function g is defined by g of x equals 6x. And even if it's not an f, this is still, right, it says it's a function, so we're not multiplying g times x. G is not a variable. Right? It means whatever you input in for x here, your output will be 6 times x. For what value of x is g of x equal to 54? All right, well, g of x is 6x, so 6x equals 54. What value of x would make that true? X would be 9. I'm just thinking what times 6 makes 54, which would be 9. You could also divide both sides by 6. 54 divided by 6 is also 9. Right, so 9 will be your answer. You don't bubble in x equals on the SAT, you would just put 9. Right, here we have a set of coordinate axes. There's a line going through -12, 0, and it looks like 0, 3, but something around there. The graph of the linear function f is shown where y equals f of x. What is the x-intercept of the graph of f? Okay, so all we need is the x-intercept. That's where it crosses this x-axis. And that would be -12, 0, right? 12 to the left and a 0 up. Any x-intercept will have a y value of 0. We've got another set of coordinate axes. The graph of the linear function f is shown. What is the y-intercept of the graph of y equals f of x? Well, we can see the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. That's at 2. So it's 0 over 2 up. We'd write that as 0, comma 2, which is option C. The number y is 84 less than the number x. Okay, so y is equal to 84 less, so you're subtracting 84 from x. Number y is, think of is as equals 84 less than, means subtracting 84 from the number x. Which equation represents this relationship between x and y? Okay, we have y equals x minus 84 is d. There we go. The function f is defined by f of x equals 4x minus 3. What is the value of f of 10? So we just substitute 10 in for x. F of 10 is equal to 4 times 10, and put the 10 in place of the x, minus 3. 4 times 10 is 40. 40 minus 3 gives us that f of 10 is equal to 37. So that'd be option B. The function f is defined by the equation f of x equals 7x plus 2. What is the value of f of x when x equals 4? So we substitute 4 in for x, and we get 7 times 4 plus 2. 7 times 4 is 28. So 28 plus 2 will give us 30. That's our answer for f of 4. As part of a science project on evaporation, Amaya measured the height of a liquid in a container over a period of time. The function f of x equals 33 minus 0.18x gives the estimated height in centimeters cm of the liquid in the container x days after the start of the project. So it looks like every day that passes, it's going down by 0.18. It's like the slope of this linear function would be negative 0.18. So it's going down, and it started at 33. So that was the initial value at time 0 days had passed. Which of the following is the best interpretation of 33 in this context? Again, 33 is our initial value, the y-intercept. So it would be the height before any time has passed. The estimated height in centimeters of the liquid at the start of the project. Okay, the start, right? Initial means start. The estimated height in centimeters of the liquid at the end of the project? Nope. The estimated change in the height? No, that's more like slope. The centimeter each day, that would be the negative 0.18. And the estimated number of days for all of the liquid to evaporate? That would be when negative 0.18 times x is equal to negative 33. So that doesn't have anything to do. I mean, you could use 33 to find that, but that's not what the 33 is. So that would just be A. G of x equals 11x plus 4. For the given linear function g, which table shows 3 values of x and their corresponding values of g of x? All of the tables seem to have the x values negative 1, 0, and 1. So we just plug all of those in and see what the outputs should be. So we get g of negative 1 should be 11 times negative 1 plus 4, which would be negative 11 plus 4. And that will give us negative 7. So that should be negative 7. The only one that has negative 7 is C. So we already know it's going to be C. But just to check it, if we did g of 0, that would be 11 times 0 plus 4, which is just 0 plus 4. G of 0 should be 4. That checks out here as well. And it's the only one that actually works for. And then g of 1 should be 11 times 1 plus 4. And that would be 11 plus 4, which is 15. So g of 1 should be 15. That also checks for C. That one is the only number that also appears for A. They have, when x is 1, it's 15, but the other two are incorrect. The other thing you could look at for this, the y-intercept should be 4. So we know when x is 0, it should be a y value of 4, or an output g of x of 4. And then the slope is 11, so it's going up 11 when you go from 4 to 15, or down 11 if you go backwards from 4 to negative 7. So C is our answer here. The function g is defined by g of x equals negative x plus 8. What is the value of g of 0? We're just putting 0 in for x. So g of 0 will be equal to negative 0 plus 8. Negative of 0, it's still 0, right? You can't actually change the value of 0 by negating it. So that will mean that g of 0 is equal to 8. Right? The negative does not affect the plus 8 part. The function f is defined by f of x equals 4x. For what value of x does f of x equal 8? Okay, well, we know f of x equals 4x, so 4x equals 8 when x equals 2. Now you can think what times 4 gives you 8, which would be 2, or just divide both sides by 4 to get rid of the times 4. 8 divided by 4 is still 2. So 2 will be your answer. Hydrogen is placed inside a container and kept at a constant pressure. The graph shows the estimated volume Y in liters of the hydrogen when its temperature is x kelvins. What is the estimated volume in liters of the hydrogen when its temperature is 500 kelvins? So we just go when x is 500, that's here. And then you'd see where that crosses on the function that they have, this graph of the function, which is at 7. So 7 liters is your answer. It's all they're asking for, the estimated volume. So when x is 500, what's y? It's 7. The line graphed in the xy plane below models the total cost in dollars for a cab ride, y, in a certain city during non-peak hours based on the number of miles traveled, x. According to the graph, what is the cost for each additional mile traveled in dollars of the cab ride? So they're just asking for the slope. So anytime x goes up by 1, the distance traveled goes up by 1, how much does the cost go up? Well, it's a linear function, so it's going up the same amount. You can choose any 2 points. I'm going to do 0 to 1. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, each of these does represent an increase of 1. It goes up from, let's see, 1, 2, 3 to 5. So it goes up by 2 every time the miles go up by 1. So that means it's $2. You check another point if you want, right? From here to here, that also went up 2. From here to here, that also went up 2, and so on. Right, so it's $2. And let's just check the scale. Yeah, that is correct. A contract for a certain service requires a one-time activation cost of $35. So, right, you pay that even if you use it for 0 months, and a monthly cost of $23. So that's $23 times the number of months. Let's call it M. Looks like they're going to make it T eventually, but which equation represents the situation where C is the total cost in dollars of the service contract for T months? Okay, so I'll change my M to T. 23 times the number of months will give you the total that you've paid for monthly fees, and then you pay that 35 no matter what. So we want something equivalent to this, which C will be our best option. They just changed the order. Again, the commutative property of addition, it doesn't matter if you do 35 plus 23t or 23t plus 35, it's the same sum. For the linear function f, the graph of y equals f of x in the xy plane has a slope of 2 and a y-intercept at 0, -5. All right, so we know that if we write an equation, a linear equation in slope-intercept form, it's y equals mx plus b, where m will be your slope. That's going to be 2. So we get y equals 2x, and b will be your y-intercept. So when x is 0, it's y. In this case, it's -5. So 2x plus -5 is the same as 2x minus 5. So we have y equals 2x minus 5. Again, they're writing it as f of x. So f of x is equal to 2x minus 5, and that would be choice D. The function f is defined by f of x equals 80 minus 6x. What is the value of f of 7? So we just put in 7 for x. F of 7 is equal to 80 minus 6 times 7. 6 times 7 is 42. So we get 80 minus 42, which will give us 38. So f of 7 is 38. That's option B. The graph shown models the number of candy bars a certain machine wraps with a label in x seconds. According to the graph, what is the estimated number of candy bars the machine wraps with a label per second? So each time it goes up by 1 second, how many candy bars does it go up? Well, they don't have a line for each one. They just have it for every 2. You can see when it goes from 0 to 2, it will be the same as the increase for any of the others, jumps by 2 because it's a linear function. But it goes from 0 up to 80. So we can think of that as our change in y, the change in the number of wrapped candy bars, divided by the change in x, the change in time, is it goes up by 80 when the time goes up by 2. If you simplify that, 80 divided by 2 is 40. So it's wrapping 40 candy bars per second. Or labeling, wrap and label 40 candy bars per second. The graph of the function f is shown where y equals f of x. What is the y-intercept of the graph? So the y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis, that's this vertical axis, and it crosses here at 0, -4. And so I was just making sure that you know the difference between a y-intercept and I guess an x-intercept. The x-intercept seems to be 1, but that doesn't matter for this one. F of x equals x plus 8 over 11. The function f is defined by the given equation. What is the value of f of x when x equals 3 over 11? So we're just putting that in for x. F of 3/11 is equal to 3/11 plus 8/11. And then they already have a common denominator, so you can just combine the numerators. 3 plus 8 gives us 11 over 11, which is equal to 1. So the function of 3 of 11, f of 3 of 11 is equal to 1. F of x equals 8x plus 4. The function f gives the estimated height in feet of a willow tree x years after its height was first measured. So it seems like the first measurement was 4, and then it's going up 8 every year that passes. Which statement is the best interpretation of 4 in this context? Okay, 4, again, is our y-intercept. So after 0 years have passed, that was the height. The tree will be measured each year for 4 years. Nope. The tree is estimated to grow to a maximum height of 4 years. Nope. It was the minimum, actually. It's like the starting value. The estimated height of the tree increased by 4 feet each year. No, that's the slope. That should be 8. The estimated height of the tree was 4 feet when it was first measured. Good, that's the initial value, right? Your y-intercept at time 0. Sean rents a tent at a cost of $11 per day plus a one-time insurance fee of $10. So it's $11 per day, so it's 11 times the number of days plus 10 no matter what. That's the insurance fee. Even if you did 0 days, you'd pay that $10. Which equation represents the total cost, C, to rent the tent with insurance for D days? So I did choose D this time. Nice. They used a variable that made sense. It should be C equals 11D plus 10, or you could reverse that. C equals 10 plus 11D. Let's see. All right, C equals 11D plus 10 right there. And you could check that one of these is not it, but when you distribute the 10, you'd either get plus 110, that's way too much, or yeah, this is also plus 110. This one is also wrong because you have 10D instead of 11D. All right, so it's definitely not that. And this one, they just switched the coefficient and the constant. Right, it's 11 times the number of days because that's your daily fee, and then you pay the insurance once. All right, we have a table. When x is 1, f of x is 5. When x is 3, your output is 13. Input is 5, output is 21. Some values of the linear function f are shown in the table above. Which of the following defines f? Well, we could see that anytime x goes up by 2, your output goes up by 8. Right, so we go from 3 to 5, that's up 2. From 13 to 21, that's up 8. So we can think of that as our change in y, right? F of x is, the output is representing the y, is 8, when the change in x is 2, which means that our slope would be 8 divided by 2 is 4. So our slope is 4. And we're not given the initial value here. We're not given the y-intercept, but they give us when x is 1. So you can move back 1 from there, right, using the slope. If it's 1 over and 5 up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right there, then if your slope is 4, it's going up 4 over 1, up 4 over 1. If you want to go back, like to the left 1, you'd go down 4 and over 1. Down 4 from 5 would be 1. So it starts at 0, 1, which means that's your y-intercept. So the slope, we could have just done it by, that's the only one that has a slope of 4 is C, but it's 4x plus 1, 1 is that y-intercept. All right, so f of x equals 4x plus 1. You could also just plug in these values and see which one it works for. It would only, like all three of them would only work for C. When I say that, I mean like one of these points could work for a different one of these equations, but there's only one of these functions, these equation options, that all three will work for. And 4 times 1 plus 1, that is 5. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 1, that is 13. 4 times 5, that's 20, plus 1 is 21. So C works, A, B, and D will not. F of x equals 14 plus 4x. The function f represents the total cost in dollars of attending an arcade when x games are played. How many games can be played for a total cost of $58? 14 must be like the entry fee to get into the arcade, and then it's $4 per game because it's 4 times the number of games, and that would have to be equal to 58. So 4x, we can subtract 14 from both sides to get the 4x alone, and that would give us that 4x is equal to 58 minus 14 would be 44. And then what do you have to multiply 4 by to get 44? X would have to be 11. You can also think of it as dividing both sides by 4 to get that 4x to be 1x, and then 44 divided by 4 is 11. So 11 games. And I guess you don't even have to understand why this makes sense, because all they told you already is that the f, the output, is the total cost, and that x is the games played. So you would just be like, all right, well, when is the total cost 58? What does x have to be? A bus is traveling at a constant speed along a straight portion of a road. The equation d equals 30t gives the distance d in feet from a road marker that the bus will be t seconds after passing the marker. Right, so t is the number of seconds, and this is just a direct proportional relationship here because there's no y-intercept. How many feet from the marker will the bus be 2 seconds after passing the marker? Well, that would just be plugging in 2 for t. So d equals 30 times 2, which means that d is equal to 60. That would be option C. The cost y in dollars for a manufacturer to make X rings is represented by the line shown. What is the cost in dollars for the manufacturer to make 60 rings? All right, so X is the number of rings. So we just go over to when X is 60, see what the Y value is on that line, and it is going to be halfway between 150 and 200 would be 175. So that'd be 175 is the cost to manufacture 60 rings. The function f is defined by f of x equals 3x minus 8. What is the value of f of 7? So we're just putting 7 in for x. Get f of 7 is equal to 3 times 7 minus 8. 3 times 7 is 21. So we get 21 minus 8, which means that f of 7 is equal to 13. That's 21 minus 8, which is option B. We have a coordinate plane here with a line going through it. The y-intercept is 8. The x-intercept seems to be somewhere between 5 and 6. The graph of the linear function f is shown where y equals f of x. What is the y-intercept of the graph of f? All right, well, it's right there. It's just 0, 8. It's 0 over 8 up. The function h is defined by h of x equals 3x minus 7. What is the value of h of negative 2? So just put in the negative 2 for x. Get h of negative 2 is equal to 3 times negative 2 minus 7. 3 times negative 2 is negative 6. Negative 6 minus 7 will give us a negative 13. So that's option A. For the linear function f, the table shows 3 values of x and their corresponding values of f of x. Which equation defines f of x? And you just think of that as x is the input, f of x is your output. So we see they gave us the y-intercept this time. So when x is 0, your output is 29. So we can think of that as f of x, right? You could write it as y equals if you want, is something plus 29. And it's going to be something x, and we need to figure out what that slope is. So when x goes up by 1, the y value, or the output, goes up by 3. So 29 to 32, 32 to 35, when it goes from 0 to 1, and then from 1 to 2. All right, so your slope is 3. We just put that there. So it should be either y equals 3x plus 29 or f of x equals 3x plus 29, and they do f of x, so it would be A. For a training program, Juan rides his bike at an average rate of 5.7 minutes per mile. Which function m models the number of minutes it will take Juan to ride x miles at this rate? All right, well, it's 5.7 minutes for every mile. So you'd multiply 5.7 times the number of miles, and that will give you the number of minutes. And I guess they're using it as a function. So m of x is equal to 5.7x. Should be something like that. Should be option D. There's no y-intercept here. It's not like he has to spend 2 minutes like getting his bike ready, and then from there it's 5.7 minutes per mile. They didn't do anything like that. So it's just a direct starting at the origin, up 5.7 over 1, like that. The function f is defined by f of x equals 1/2 times the quantity x plus 6. What is the value of f of 4? So we just put in 4 for x. F of 4 is equal to 1/2 times 4 plus 6. You don't even have to distribute the 1/2 because we just add 4 plus 6 is 10. 1/2 times 10, which gives us that f of 4 is equal to 5. The function g is defined by g of x equals 4x minus 6. What is the value of g of negative 7? So we just put in negative 7 in place of the x. Get 4 times negative 7 minus 6. 4 times negative 7 would be negative 28. If you subtract 6 from that, it makes it more negative, so it would go down to negative 34. So g of negative 7 equals negative 34, which is option A. For the linear function f, the graph of y equals f of x in the xy plane has a slope of 39 and passes through the point 0, 0. So it passes through the origin, that's your y-intercept. Which equation defines f? All right, well, if you wrote it in slope-intercept form with a y, it would be y equals the slope, so 39, times x, plus the y-intercept, which is 0. So 39x plus 0 is just the same as 39x. Now, if you write it as f of x, you'd write f of x equals 39x. And that would be option D. For the function f, the graph of y equals f of x in the xy plane has a slope of 3 and passes through the point 0, negative 8. Again, they gave us the y-intercept, which would be negative 8. They give us the slope, which is 3. Which equation defines f? Well, we'd write it, if you wrote it in slope-intercept form, it would be y equals 3x minus 8. We put the slope in as the coefficient for the x. Negative 8 is the constant you're adding to the x term. In this case, adding a negative, same as subtracting. So if you write that in f of x form, it would be f of x equals 3x minus 8, which is choice B. Marisol drove 3 hours from city A to city B. The equation below estimates the distance, d, in miles Marisol traveled after driving for t hours. Which of the following does 45 represent in this equation? If it's the number of hours times 45 gives you the distance, then that means 45 is your velocity, or it's the speed, how fast she's going, or you can think of it as more specifically, how many miles does she travel per hour. So Marisol took 45 trips. That's not the number of trips. The distance between A and B is 45 miles. No, the D is on the other side. Marisol drove at an average speed of 45 miles per hour. All right, that makes sense. You do the average speed times the time to get the distance. And it took Marisol 45 hours. No, the time would be the number of hours. That's what you're multiplying 45 by, so it would be C. For the linear function f of 0 equals 17 and f of 1 equals 17. Which equation defines f? All right, so even if you increase x by 1, and it's linear, right, so it can't be something weird where it like looped back around. It's going up at a constant rate, or in this case, staying constant at a constant rate, I guess you'd say. Which defines that? Well, it seems like no matter what x is, the output is 17. So it should be f of x equals 17, which is option C. Right, you can just see between these two, the slope was 0. This is the one. They all have the slope of 0, but the only one that would give you an output of 17 is C. The function f, defined by f of t equals 14t plus 9, gives the estimated length in inches of a vine plant t months after Tavan purchased it. Which of the following is the best interpretation of 9 in this context? 9 is the initial amount, so even after t was 0, so if 0 months had passed, it was still a length of 9. That's like your initial amount, and 14 is how much it's growing per month in inches. So it grows 14 inches per month, but it started at 9 inches. So it should be something like that. Tavan will keep the vine plant for 9 months. Now it has nothing to do with the number of months. The vine plant is expected to grow 9 inches each month, and that's 14 inches each month. That's the slope. The vine plant is expected to grow to a maximum length of 9 inches. No, it started at that length, so it's not the maximum. It's getting longer than that each day, or each month, is it? Yeah, each month. The estimated length of the vine plant was 9 inches when Tavan purchased it, right? So that was at when t equals 0, then it was already 9 inches. S equals 40 plus 3t. The equation gives the speed s in miles per hour of a certain car t seconds after it began to accelerate. So t is the amount of time from when it started accelerating. S is the speed in miles per hour. What is the speed in miles per hour of the car 5 seconds after it began to accelerate? So 5 is going in place of the t. Just do s equals 40 plus 3 times 5. We're putting the 5 in place of the t. 3 times 5 gives us 15, so we get 40 plus 15, which means that s is equal to 55. That's option D. T equals 1,000 plus 18h. In the equation above, T represents Brittany's total take-home pay in dollars for her first week of work, where H represents the number of hours she worked that week, and 1,000 represents a sign-on bonus. So she get the 1,000 no matter what, and then H is the number of hours worked. You're multiplying that by 18, which seems to be the pay per hour. If Brittany's total take-home pay was $1,576, for how many hours was Brittany paid for her first week of work? Okay, so we're just putting this in as the total for the take-home. So that's going in for T. 1,576 equals 1,000 plus 18 times H. And we'll subtract 1,000 from both sides. We're just solving for H here, which gives us 576 equals 18H. And then to solve for H, you divide both sides by 18. That leaves us with H is equal to 576 divided by 18, which is 32. You can use a calculator for that. If you want, you could do it by hand as well. But 32 is the number of hours she worked. If you want to check that, you just plug it back in. Just do 18 times 32 plus 1,000, and it should give you that 1,576. 18 times 32 plus 1,000 equals 1,576. Okay, that checks out. I mean, you could have also plugged in all of the values and seen which one works, but in this case, I think you just do it algebraically and you can make sure that you're right. The function g is defined as g of x equals 5x plus a, where a is a constant. If g of 4 equals 31, what is the value of a? All right, well, we can plug in 4 for this equation here. So g of 4 is going to be 5 times 4 plus a, and we know that that's equal to 31. So 5 times 4 is 20, and that means that 20 plus a, this constant, is equal to 31. Think what plus 20 makes 31, which would mean a is 11. Or you could just do the opposite of plus 20, subtract 20 from both sides, get a alone, which gives you also a is equal to 11. Right? If you want to check that, just do 5x plus 11. That means when you put in a 4, this should be equal to 31. 5 times 4 is 20, plus 11, and that means 31 equals 31, so that checks out. Coordinate plane here. It says on the x-axis time since initial deposit in months, and then bank account balance in dollars. So for every month that passes, it's going up the same rate the bank account balance is going up. A bank account was opened with an initial deposit. So the initial deposit is that initial amount times 0, that's 20. It says 20. Over the next several months, regular deposits were made into this account, and there were no withdrawals made during this time. So I guess you're not getting any interest. They're just adding in money, the same amount at regular intervals. The graph of the function f shown, where y equals f of x, estimates the account balance in dollars in this bank account x months since the initial deposit. To the nearest whole dollar, what is the amount of the initial deposit estimated by the graph? Okay, well, again, the initial deposit is just that y-intercept. It's the starting value, which appears to be 20. I will check. It says in dollars. Sometimes they might say in hundreds of dollars or in thousands of dollars, something like that, in which case, right, then you'd have to adjust it accordingly, but it's just dollars, so it would be 20. And they said to the nearest whole dollar, that is already a whole dollar. The function f is defined by the equation f of x equals 100x plus 2. What is the value of f of x where x equals 9? So we just put in 9 for that x. F of 9 is equal to 100 times 9 plus 2. 100 times 9 is 900. So 900 plus 2 gives us 902 for f of 9. That would be option D. On January 1st, 2015, a city's minimum hourly wage was $9.25. So that's like the initial amount. It will increase by 50 cents on the first day of the year for the next 5 years. So for each year, it will go up 0.50. Which of the following functions best models the minimum hourly wage in dollars x years after January 1st, 2015, where x is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5? Okay, so again, our initial amount is $9.25. And then the slope, right, what it's going up each year is 50 cents. We multiply that by the number of years, which they say is x. All right, so after 1 year, that's adding 50 cents once. After 2 years, you're doing 2 times 50 cents, that's adding $1, and so on. Right, so it should be something like this. They could reverse these, right? If they put it as 0.50x plus 9.25, that would be the same thing. The commutative property of addition. It means that it doesn't matter what order we add those. But we could see C is the most similar to this. Right? The x is being multiplied by the change, right? Because it's the number of years times the change per year, not by the initial amount. So that would just be the constant. A student council group is selling school posters for a fundraiser. They use the function p of x equals 5x minus 220 to determine their profit, p of x, in dollars for selling x school posters. In order to earn a profit of $900, how many school posters must they sell? The profit is over here. They want to make $900, and that would be equal to 5 times the number of posters minus 220. So we're just solving for what is x going to be in this case. So we can do that by getting x alone, add 220 to both sides, which gives us that 1120 equals 5x. And that means we solve for 5x, we want to find x. So we just divide both sides by 5, and x is equal to 1120 divided by 5, which is 224. Now, after you found x, I would plug it back in and see if it actually works to make sure that you didn't make an error typing in or with any of the arithmetic. So you get 5 times 224 minus 220. 5 times 224 says 1120, and then 1120 minus 220 is, in fact, 900. Right, so that checks out. That's what we wanted. So our answer was 224, how many school posters, and x is the number of school posters. So it's 224. Argon is placed inside a container with a constant volume. The graph shows the estimated pressure Y in pounds per square inch, PSI, of the argon when its temperature is x kelvins. What is the estimated pressure of the argon in PSI when the temperature is 600 kelvins? So we just go down here, our x value, or x coordinate, is going to be the temperature in kelvins. So you go to 600, and then you just see where that crosses on here, and that's at this point, which is 600 comma 12. So 12 is the pressure in PSI. What is the estimated pressure in PSI? So it's 12. Point would be 600 comma 12 right there. The length y of a white whale was 162 centimeters when it was born, and increased at an average of 4.8 centimeters per month. All right, so it's 162 to start, and then it goes up by 4.8 per month. So you do that times m, the number of months, for the first 12 months. Which equation best represents the situation where x is the number of months? Okay, so put in x in place of the m there. I don't know why they're so averse to using m to represent months, but here we go. After the whale was born, and y is the length. Okay, so they're using x and y. That makes a little more sense. Y equals 162 plus 4.8. You could also write it as 4.8x plus 162. Like that, doesn't matter, the commutative property of addition. So let's see, we've got d. So that would be d, which looks more like this, y equals 4.8x plus 162. You can think of 4.8 like the slope, it's the rate of change. So anytime x goes up by 1, it goes up by 4.8, the output. And your 162 is your y-intercept. It's the starting value at time 0 when it was just born, that's the length. The function f is defined by f of x equals 1/10 x minus 2. What is the y-intercept of the graph of y equals f of x? Well, the y-intercept is just going to be this minus 2 here. So that'd be when x is 0, your y value is -2. Now you can think of that as, if you put it in slope-intercept form, it's y equals mx plus b, and b is your y-intercept. M would be the slope, so it's the rate of change. Y-intercept is at time 0. So even if you plug, you could also just plug in a 0 here. 1/10 times 0 is 0. Your output would be -2. So when x is 0, your output is -2. To repair a refrigerator, a technician charges $60 per hour for labor plus $120 for parts. So $120 for parts, it doesn't matter how long it took, right? It isn't affected by the number of hours. $60 per hour, right? That'd be $60 times the number of hours would give you the total that you paid for that hourly work. Which function f represents the total amount in dollars the technician will charge for this job if it takes x hours? So again, I put h for hours, it should just be x. And the total amount, f of x, would be equal to 120 plus 60x, or you could reverse those, 60x plus 120, or the commutative property of addition, doesn't matter what order you add them. So we'll see that would be C, 60x plus 120 is f of x. In the linear function h of 0 equals 41, and h of 1 equals 40. Which equation defines h? All right, so our y-intercept when x is 0 was 41, or it's like the initial amount. So it should be adding 41, and it's going down 1 when x goes up by 1. It's a linear function, so we know that's like the rate that continues on. But when you increase x by 1, the output goes down by 1. Again, that means our slope is -1. We said our y-intercept is 41, so if you wrote it as slope-intercept form, it'd be y equals -1x, or just -x plus b, which is 41. So -x plus 41, which is a. H of x equals -x plus 41. Hannah, I'm not sure if it's Hannah or Hannah, deposited a fixed amount into her bank account each month. So fixed amount, that means it's the same amount she's adding each time. The function f of t equals 100 plus 25t gives the amount in dollars in Hannah's bank account after t monthly deposits. So it's 25 each month times the number of months, and then 100 must have been the initial deposit. What is the best interpretation of the 25 in this context? Well, you're multiplying that by the number of months, t, after t monthly deposits, right? So that's the amount that's being deposited each month. With each monthly deposit, the amount in Hannah's bank account increased by $25. That's the increase each month. Before Hannah made any monthly deposits, the amount in her bank was 25. No, that would be the 100. Right, that would be the 100 because that's your initial amount that's not affected by the t. After one monthly deposit, the amount in Hannah's bank account was 25. No, actually it was 100 plus 25, but that's not really what the 25 would represent anyway. It's what you're adding each time. Hannah made a total of 25 monthly deposits. No, t is the number of monthly deposits. You're multiplying the number of monthly deposits by the amount you're depositing, which would be represented by a, the amount it increased. The function f is defined by f of x equals 5x plus 8. For what value of x does f of x equal 58? So we'd say 58 is equal to, f of x is 5x plus 8. And just looking at it, you could see it's going to be 5 times 10 plus 8, but still we'll solve it the normal way. So you subtract 8 from both sides, we get 50 equals 5x, and then divide both sides by 5, or you can think what times 5 gives you 50, x will be 10. And then just to check that, you can plug it in. 5 times 10 is 50, plus 8 is 58. The function h is defined by h of x equals x plus 200. What is the value of h of 50? We just plug in 50 for x, and we get h of 50 is equal to 50 plus 200, which gives us 250 for h of 50, which is option B. The graph of the function f is a line in the xy plane. If the line has a slope of 3/4 and f of 0 equals 3, which of the following defines f? Our y-intercept when x is 0, the output is 3. So we'd say b equals 3. Our slope is 3/4, and we know it's a linear function, a line. So we'd say it's y equals mx plus b, or in this case, we do f of x equals mx plus b. So we do f of x equals 3/4 x plus 3. Be something like that, which is choice B. Oxygen gas is placed inside a tank with a constant volume. The graph shows the estimated temperature Y in kelvins of the oxygen tank when its pressure is x atmospheres. Okay, so when you do the atmospheres are on the x-axis and the temperature is over on the y-axis. What is the estimated temperature in kelvins of the oxygen gas when its pressure is 6 atmospheres? We go over to 6 here, and then we just see when does that cross. It's right there at 6,700, which means that the temperature is the y-coordinate of 700. The function f is defined by f of x equals negative 3x plus 60. What is the value of f of x when x equals negative 8? So plug in negative 8 for x. F of negative 8 equals negative 3 times negative 8 plus 60. Negative times negative makes a positive. 3 times 8 is 24. So we get 24 plus 60, which means that f of negative 8 is equal to 84. That's choice D. Robert rented a truck to transport materials he purchased from a hardware store. He was charged an initial fee of $20, so that's no matter how many miles he drives, it's going to be $20, plus an additional 70 cents per mile driven. So that's 70 cents per, so each mile you drive, you pay 70 cents. You multiply that by the number of miles, we call that times M. If the truck was driven 38 miles, what was the total amount Robert was charged? So we do the per mile charge, 70 cents, times the number of miles, times 38, plus this $20 initial fee that you pay no matter what. If you do 0 miles or 1,000 miles, you just pay that $20 for the initial fee. We'd say that could be equal to the total charge. Plug that in, we get 0.7 times 38 gives me 26.6. 26.6 plus 20, which will be 46.6. And usually if you're giving money, you'd give it to the hundredth place, so 46.60, $46.60. P of t equals 250 plus 10 times t. The population of snow leopards in a certain area can be modeled by the function p, defined above, where p of t is the population t years after 1990. Of the following, which is the best interpretation of the equation p of 30 equals 550? Well, we know that t is the thing that's going in here, t is the variable, and that's the number of years after 1990, which if you add 30 years to 1990, that would bring you to 2020. You can write that as 1990 plus 30 equals 2020. So essentially, it's going to be predicting the population of leopards, or is it snow leopards, in 2020 to be 550. So the snow leopard population in the area is predicted to be 30 in the year 2020. No, it's predicted to be 550. 30 is the number of years after. The snow leopard population in the area is predicted to be 30. No, it's not 30. The snow leopard population in the area is predicted to be 550 in the year 2020. Okay, that's what we said. That's good. The snow leopard population in the area is predicted to be 550 in the year 2030. Now, that'd be 40 years after 1990. They're trying to trip you up with the fact that it was a 30. Right, but that would only work if it was starting in the year 2000. They're starting in the year 1990. So C is the best option there. If y equals 5x plus 10, what is the value of y when x equals 8? Well, we just say y equals 5 times 8. We put the 8 in place of the x plus 10. 5 times 8 is 40. So 40 plus 10 gives us that y is equal to 50. F of x equals x plus b. For the linear function f, b is a constant. When x equals 0, f of x equals 30. So we could say 30 is equal to, put in 0 for the x, 0 plus b. What is the value of b? Well, what do you have to add to 0 to get 30? Well, b would have to be 30. So that's all you got to do. You can also think of it as like x equals 0. This is your output. This is like your y-intercept. And when you're writing this, you have x plus b. So your slope there is 1. It's 1 times x. And then the plus b should be your y-intercept, which in this case, they told you is 30. The function g is defined by g of x equals 10x plus 8. What is the value of g of x when x equals 8? So just plug in 8 for x. We get g of 8 equals 10 times 8 plus 8. 10 times 8 is 80. So we get 80 plus 8, which means that g of 8 is equal to 88. That's choice D. F of x equals 7x plus 1. The function gives the total number of people on a company retreat with x managers. What is the total number of people on a company retreat with 7 managers? So x is the number of managers. We're just plugging in 7 for x, which means f of 7 is equal to 7 times 7 plus 1. That's 49 plus 1. So we get f of 7 is equal to 50. So 50 is the total number of people when they're X managers. Which of the following is the graph of the equation y equals 2x minus 5 in the xy plane? So first let's look. Our slope is going to be 2, and our y-intercept is going to be negative 5. So we're going to cross at 0, negative 5, which this one does and this one does. And then our slope should be 2. It should be going up, which this one's going down. So we know it's not that one. It's not this one because that's the wrong y-intercept, wrong y-intercept. This one's going up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. So that does check out. D is your y equals 2x minus 5 graphed on an xy plane. And that's the end. All right, so that's all of the functions. See, a lot of them were just these simple ones where it says, it gives you a function, and then you have to plug in x. Sometimes they'll explicitly tell you, if x is this, what's the output of this function, or what's f of x. Sometimes they'll be like this, where it explains what the x is, right? So you say x is the number of managers, and they say you have 7 managers. So they're essentially telling you x is 7. Just have to use a little bit more reading comprehension skills. It's not too bad. But yeah, a lot of them are just telling you, plug this in, plug this in. Some of them said, there were a couple of these, I think there were only 2 or 3, where they gave you a constant and you had to solve for it, given one of the inputs is this, the corresponding output is this. So what would the constant have to be? And then you just plug in the input and that corresponding output where they go. So you put the 30 for the f of x, the 0 for the x, then you can solve for the constant or whatever. And yeah, they did another one like that. There were some of these word problems, and it's just making sure that you understand what the word problem is, and then interpreting it. So those ones usually not that bad, but they're the ones that require the most reading comprehension skills. Some of them you have to actually solve from a word problem, but just make sure you're looking for what's the y-intercept. The y-intercept is like the initial value, the starting value, the one-time charge, the single use something, right? It's just going to be the thing that is only occurring once, and then the slope is going to be either like a monthly charge or a per mile something, or how much this grows per week or per month, right? It's a per something basis. That's your slope. Change in y divided by change in x. All right, here's another one. They just said plug it in. They had some of these interpret a graph, and it would just say, all right, if your input is this, what's the output? And then you just figure out where it is on the line. So those ones are really not that hard. It's just making sure that you're able to interpret a graph properly. And then knowing how slope and y-intercept relate to a function, like a linear function. If they give you the output, can you find what the input is? So it's just plugging in the output, solve for the input. I guess it's a little bit more, like it takes a little bit more work than if they just give you the input, but it's pretty much the same. Here's another word problem. And yep, input. There really were not that many difficult problems here. Again, this one's just interpreting what is the slope, what's the y-intercept in context. So make sure, if you've done a lot of these, then these are really easy. If you haven't, then just make sure you practice them, because it's a specific type of reading comprehension that is a little bit more mathy than the reading comprehension on the reading and writing section. I'm trying to think if there was anything else. There are some of these where it seems like they're throwing you with this x is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All that this is saying is you can't continue it on forever, because all the only information they gave you is that are increasing the minimum wage by 50 cents for the next 5 years. So if you applied it when x equals 6 or x equals 7, then you'd say, well, that's not technically true or necessarily true based on the information they gave you. When they gave you the input, okay, interpreting a graph in context, that's not too different. Making sure you know what the x-intercept, the y-intercept mean. Here's another one where they gave you a constant. You could solve for it by just plugging in the 4, plugging in the 31. And that's essentially it. I'm not remembering any other particular problems, but just make sure you're really comfortable with this notation, like f of x equals blah, blah, blah. That doesn't mean f times x. You can use other variables, g of x, h of x. They can really use anything, but they will say the function f, the function g, and whatnot. And yeah, just don't think of this as this is a variable times a variable. I mean, if you've seen this in class before, if you've done it, you'll probably be comfortable with it. But in case you haven't, or if it's been a long time and maybe you're a little bit rusty, just if you see f of x and they say this function f, that's not a variable. It means whatever you're inputting here, this is your output. And then if you consider it that way, there won't be that much difficulty with it. All right, well, anyway, if you have any questions, any concerns, if you found any errors or had recommendations for better ways to do a problem, or just even a different way to do the problem, comment that below. Give any feedback. It's always appreciated. And thank you for watching.